God bless, hope you have a great day. This here is Tulsi Gabbard. As you can see in her bio, 2020 presidential candidate and former congresswoman. So she's a Democrat, a politician from America, and she's just put out this tweet about some American mayor. Mayor Lightfoot's blatant anti-white racism is abhorrent. I call upon President Biden, Kamala Harris, and other leaders of our country of all races to join me in calling for Mayor Lightfoot's resignation. Our leaders must condemn all racism, including anti-white. And as we see here, she's got like over 1 million followers. So we're far beyond the point of making the term anti-white mainstream. All the media, for context of those who don't understand how significant this is and the efforts that we've had to behind the scenes, the work we've done behind the scenes for this type of thing to be a reality, all right? And to get this ball rolling, the real work that has been changing the planet that folk like myself have been doing behind the scenes, okay? In the 70s, in all Western nations in the 70s, and around that time, 60s, 70s, the word anti-white was actually removed from our dictionaries. So if you get an old dictionary from like the 50s, you can look it up and it has anti-white in there. But if you get a dictionary from after the 70s, up until today, the word has been removed from the dictionary. So, and that was a generation before I was even born, okay? So, while most of the adults alive today, all right, in the West, while our parents were children growing up, that word was already taken out of our society and civilization. So, it's been a few generations where this word has not existed. It was literally removed and hidden and purposely taken out of the dictionary by the anti-whites who run our establishment so that we could not call them out and actually defend ourselves against them and their violence and their harm and their persecution of our folk. So it's been generations since we've even had the word anti-white. But now, because of the effort of folk like myself and the work that we've been doing and all the other great heroes in the white positive sphere around the world, in our community, we've got the world's most popular and followed politicians using the word in their own day-to-day life. We have every single major media outlet company using our terminology, this word that we have put back into the minds of the masses, a concept that was erased, that did not exist, an idea that was destroyed and hidden away. We have literally brought it back into the light, and now it exists in the minds of the masses, and it is a part of the dialogue, it is a part of the conversation, and it is changing the planet. So we've literally changed history. How? By using a certain word and using it in a certain way. By speaking a word, we have changed history forever. And this is just the beginning. And again, anybody can verify what I'm saying. You can check it yourself. Look at old dictionaries from the 50s. The word anti-white is in those dictionaries. Look at any dictionaries from after the 60s and 70s. The word anti-white was removed by the anti-whites. Now, look around, get on Twitter, read news articles. The word anti-white is back. It is being used again in this day and age, after generations of it not existing. Why? Because folk like myself have gone out into the world and we're constantly saying it. And we're bombarding everybody with it. We're putting out posters, we're putting out signs, we're making it known. We are not going to be silenced by mainstream media. We're not going to be silenced by the bankers, by the politicians. No, we have a voice and we have spread it and we have rippled our voice across the entire planet. And now that reverberation is beginning to make change. And we can see it with our own eyes. We have literally changed history. by speaking a word into existence. So think, when people say that the pen is mightier than the sword, understand how significant that really is. You don't change the world with an army. You change the world by speaking certain words into existence. Alright? That's where true power lies. And that's why what we do is so effective, because it is a focus on narrative, lexicon, verbiage, understanding the dialectics and the logic involved in those interactions, and how they do ripple out and affect the day-to-day lives of all of humanity. It's essentially magic. Like, what magic is a metaphor for. The story of magic, wizards who use their spells to change reality. It's a metaphor for our work, using words and lexicon, understanding the dialectics of the human mind, etc. How concepts are formed and then actually influence the actions that are possible for folk to take in their lives. So everything you do, you have to think about doing it before you do it. So if you can influence the way that people think, you influence what people do. And people think with words. So you change the world, you change reality by changing the words. Because the words are changed, then that changes the thinking, because people think with words. And then when the thinking changes, that changes the actions, what everyone does. Again, it's evident. We have already changed history. The interesting thing about this, though, okay, not only is this further evidence that we've changed history, we're influencing the most powerful people on the planet, and they're doing what we want them to do. Exactly what we want them to do. They're doing it as we want them to do it. Why? Because we can control what people do by controlling what they think, by controlling the use of the words that they think with, which then affects the actions they can take. So the most powerful people on the planet right now are doing what we want them to do because of the words we spoke into existence. And you can explain exactly how, or you can understand exactly how it works. It can be explained to children how it works, and they can fathom it, and they can speak these words into existence and control the most powerful, influential beings and companies, organizations, nations, etc., simply by speaking powerful words and knowing which words to use and which words not to use, which is very important as well. It's not just about the powerful words you do speak into existence, but those words you are averse to, those words which you choose not to speak or utter. In the same way, there's a lot of magic metaphors involved here. Like in the story of Harry Potter, the reason they don't say Voldemort, you're not supposed to say his name in that Harry Potter universe, is because that literally gives him power. That gives him life. That's actually giving power to the evil Dark Lord Voldemort. If you speak his name, you're actually giving him a bit of your magical essence, giving him a part of your spirit, your soul, giving him some of your life energy, alright? And he's like sapping it in like a vampire every time somebody speaks his name, or even thinks about him existing. In the same way, in like Lord of the Rings, when Frodo puts on the ring and he connects and he's like tapping into that power, then what's his name? The big bad guy in Lord of the Rings, Sauron or whatever, he can see where he is. Right? When certain corrupted things are used that are linked to some type of evil entity or negativity, okay? Something corrupt, something bad, evil, dark. When those things are used, they give energy and power to that dark entity, and it's sapped from whatever that entity is which uses the thing. So again, for like Lord of the Rings, if Frodo whacks on the ring, because it's connected to that evil of that dark entity has power from that. He's connected to that. He knows where Frodo is. Frodo's sapped, he's weaker. He loses his life energy. He ends up looking more like Gollum slowly, because of wearing the ring and whatnot, okay? In the same way, if you use certain words which are connected to certain evil, you give power to that evil, okay? And one of these words is racism. And this, a perfect example is right here in this thread of how this actually unfolds. Okay? So, racism, if you use that word, your life energy, your power is being given to, and life is being given to, essentially, credence, validity is being established for the concept and the ideology of Antiwhitism, which is the destruction of all of Western kind. And this is evident if we go down further, okay? Here we have one of the most powerful people in the world. They're calling out anti-white, but racism, okay? Instead of anti-whiteism, they're calling it anti-white racism. Why is this an issue? Well, because fundamentally racism means white people, okay? And that is why the anti-whites will argue that you can't be racist to a white person, or that whites cannot suffer racism, okay? And the reason that makes sense, and you have to accept that, okay? You can't argue with the anti-white. You can't argue with them and try to say, no, that's illogical. Obviously, white people can suffer racism as well. No, sorry, no, that's their word. They created the word racism. It's their definition. It means white people. All white people. So white people can't suffer racism because racism is white people. When white people exist and they're not harming themselves and destroying themselves to better other folk, and so diversity, so hire non-white people, fire the white people. If white people aren't harming themselves to better other non-white folk, then they're racist. Okay? So racist just means white people existing and not killing themselves. Okay? And if we go down here, one of the most popular responses with almost 4,000 likes, so about over 1,000 likes an hour, is this stupid video of old mate explaining how whites can't suffer racism because racism is systemic oppression of the system, and it's a white system and whites have power, so whites can't actually suffer, and he goes through this big 2-minute spiel explaining exactly why you can't be racist to white people. And it doesn't make any sense. It's illogical, but they don't work with logic. They work within the anti-white narrative. And in the anti-white narrative, there's white supremacy and oppression of the non-whites and all of this. And racism is a systemic system of oppression because white people have power and all of this crazy nonsense. And they justify it like that. So, you can't call it anti-white racism, because then you're still using that word from their narrative, which gives them power. As soon as you throw in the racism part, then they just start doing this. They start saying, oh no, because racism, you're white, but white people can't suffer racism because racism actually is just white people existing and not giving all of their things to non-whites and killing themselves. And they say it out front. They use fancy words like white supremacy and systemic oppression and privilege and all of this stuff. But when you translate it, they're just saying racism equals white people who don't want to give up all of their possessions and kill themselves. I'm pretty sure that's the average white person. Every white person I've ever met in my life doesn't just want to kill themselves and give all their possessions to non-whites. So guess what? in the anti-white narrative, that makes you a racist. Because the only way you cannot be a racist in the anti-white narrative, you not be a white supremacist or a Nazi, is if you want to kill yourself and give all of your possessions to non-whites. That's what racist means. And even old mate goes for a 2-minute fucking spiel explaining it here. Over almost 4,000 likes, the most popular response. And this is what the anti-whites come back with. This is their response. This is what they say. This is from their narrative, their story. I'm just reporting it. Okay? But this is how they work in their anti-white narrative. So, huge positive here. This is evidence that folk like myself and the work that I'm doing, and again, I'm just a nobody. I'm a nobody, homeless man from a little town in Australia. Let me say that again. I'm a nobody, homeless man from a little town in Australia. Yet because I have the courage to speak truth and suffer persecution, I've literally been a part of a group of individuals around the world who have actively changed history forever. We have changed the direction of all of humanity. The most powerful people in the world are saying what I want them to say. They're still saying a few things that I don't want them to say. Fair enough. But they're saying the things I want them to say. These are the most powerful politicians on the planet. But they're saying what Raymond Foster wants them to say. And again, who's Raymond Foster? A nobody. Some homeless man from a little town in Australia. Yet I have the power to change the entire planet and the direction of all of humanity. Not just by myself. Obviously, it takes community, it takes a tribe, working with others around the world, a network of, concerned individuals who are focused and dedicated. But we have literally changed the history of humanity forever. We've changed the course of history. And what's my point with that? My point is that if I, a nobody, a homeless man from a little town in Australia, an absolute nobody, if I, just because I have some dedication and I've got a bit of courage, alright, I've literally changed history forever. I've changed the entire planet for the better. And it's more and more changes coming. And the evidence is here. Again, we can show anybody. You can see it yourselves. You can look at your dictionaries. You can look at what the politicians and the media are saying right now today. And you cannot deny that I and the others that I work with, we have changed the course of history forever. We have affected and we actually have influence to change the entire planet. And I am just a nobody. So if I have that power and I have changed all of human history and I've affected the entire planet with my efforts, imagine the power that you have, that you haven't realized, that you haven't tapped into because you haven't made that effort, or you haven't had that courage or that dedication or that desire, that sense of duty to serve and protect all of humanity and make the world a better place. But if that's all it takes, just a bit of willpower, and even a nobody, a homeless man from a little town in Australia with nothing to his name but a backpack and the clothes on his back, can change the course of human history and affect the most powerful and influence the most powerful people and politicians on the planet, then what excuse do you have? None. You have no excuse. You have the power right now to change all of human history and affect everything on this planet for the future generations. If a nobody homeless man from a little town in Australia can literally change the course of history and affect the entire planet by just speaking words, having the courage to speak truth, then imagine what you could do. You could do a lot more than me. Because I'm nothing special. There's nothing special about me. I'm just a nobody, just another man like everybody else. The only difference is I do the work. So, imagine if you did. Imagine if you did the work as well. The power and influence you could have, the type of hero you could be. You can be a hero. You can have the power to change all of history. You can affect and change this entire planet. You have no excuse not to, okay? And in fact, you do change and influence the entire planet regardless of whether you want to or not. Just the fact that you exist. It's like the butterfly effect, right? The flapping of the wings of a butterfly can create a tornado on the other side of the planet. You existing, you influence. Every choice you make in your life influences everyone else on this planet and the future of humanity. So if you're not going to make positive choices and actually do the right thing and work in ways which makes positive changes to all of humanity and actually change the planet for the better, then at least try to refrain and have self-control and try not to do those things which are making the planet worse. Because either way, you are influencing the entire planet. You, as an individual, and your everyday, like your daily actions and choices, you change the lives and the future of everybody on this planet. You affect every single person. And the direction of all of humanity. We all do, equally, as a collective. So if you don't want to step up and be a hero and save humanity for the future generations, at least keep quiet, sit down, do your own thing, mind your own business, and try not to make things worse. Okay? One of the things that makes things worse is by using words which give power to the will and ideology which leads to the actions of injustice and negativity. So, using words such as racism, okay? That's a negative, evil thing to do. Granted, a lot of the time, evil is unconscious, and you're forgiven if you repent from evil action and you stop doing these things when you recognize that you are partaking in wrong. So, until next time, take it easy, folks, and stay wide positive. Have faith. We will recapture our destiny, and we will save humanity.